So it's funny you say that because I think there is a role for universities, but I don't think it's what you said. Your thought and your answer was not very well thought out. I don't think you put a lot of time into it. And I'm not sure just if you're making all the connections, right? No offense. No offense.
Plenty taken.
No offense. Welcome to episode 976 of Beyond the Exchange. I'll start with Brian, our co-host of Beyond the Exchange. This is a really smooth intro. I like this. I want to try to replicate this each time.
Each time.
Yeah.
Well, each time it seems to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. It's like I'm looping back. I don't know exactly what order I want to go in or what I want to say. And I think it works. It makes it seem organic. Yeah. So we're here with Brian King, CEO, all-knowing and all-seeing when it comes to Lodas Markets Incorporated, Delaware Corporation, for any of you wondering. Normally, I would say, and I'm Jeremy Smith, the COO of Lodas Markets, Brian's humble servant. But
servant no more.
Servant no more. I have escaped from under his oppressive thumb. And I actually launched my own company, completely unrelated. And I am now the co-founder and CEO of Pegasus. So
I think of Pegasus and I think of a pink unicorn. Is that going to be your logo?
It's not, because a unicorn and a Pegasus, a Pegasus are different animals.
I know.
Well, you don't seem to know.
Although that's what I see in my head.
Although, do you want to know, or do you know the name of the creature that is both a Pegasus and a unicorn?
Ooh, I don't know this one.
Most people don't. I learned it only like a month or 3 ago. It's an alicorn. An alicorn. That is a Pegasus unicorn.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just think of my kids watched My Little Pony growing up. And so those worlds are colliding as I think about the Pegasus.
Oh, are they really?
They are. Yeah. They are. They're colliding.
Okay. So no, a pink unicorn will not be. The logo or mascot of Pegasus.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, it will be. It's a kind of a line representation of a simple representation of a Pegasus. You might, looking right at it, you may not even realize it's a Pegasus that you're looking at. But if you're smart, you will.
Okay.
So you won't, but others might. Please like and subscribe and look at the logo of my new company, Pegasus.
Take a minute maybe to describe what Pegasus actually is.
Yes. So Pegasus is, I'm building it because of the fact that the university system is broken, right? It's 4 years, 100K plus, and everyone comes out completely unprepared for whatever job it is you're going to take. You want to be an accountant? You'll have no idea what to do. How about investment banker? Absolutely no idea when you get there. But if you want to be a software developer, you'll still have absolutely no clue what you're doing when you get to your first job. Universities are broken. And so what Pegasus is a new category of post-secondary institution that we're creating that I call a career accelerator. And a career accelerator is essentially designed to be, for graduating high school seniors, instead of college, you go to career accelerator. Each accelerator is focused on a single career path. The first two we're launching are product manager and software developer accelerators. And it's 1 year, 15K, and you come out with entry-level mastery of both the technical skills for that job and the soft skills for that job. And the way that you do that is it's a skill, right? Software development or product management. And there's only one way to manage a skill, no exceptions. It's by doing it. Where you learn to ride a bike, to sing, to speak a foreign language, you master it by doing it. And so at Pegasus, there are no lectures, there are no textbooks. You learn to build software by spending a year building software.
Mm.
And, you learn by doing, and it's part of the inspiration behind that is all of us went to our first jobs as zeros, right? We didn't know what we were doing because, again, universities have failed us. But by the end of the first year, most of us were like, okay, all right, I think I know what I'm doing now, right? Not from like a VP level, but from an entry level. I know what I'm doing now. And it wasn't from, sitting in lectures and reading textbooks during our first year at our first employer. We learned to do the job by doing the job. And so
Doing, failing.
Exactly. In fact, that pedagogy that will be part of exactly how we do it, I call continuous failure.
And it's so much better to fail in a learning environment than to fail in an actual job.
That's right. And you tank the company you're working for because you forgot to do some security patch or something like that. Exactly. And that's the whole thing is the way this works is we give each of the kids just enough information to go. Build a calculator application. And then we let them go and they figure things out on themselves, mostly with what we call an AI first approach, right? It's like, don't dive into code and try to figure things out and Google that. Have the AI do it for you. Whether you're a product manager, software developer, whatever it is, start with the AI, have it take you as far as it can. And then that's when you dive into the details. Mm-hmm. And that makes you 10x more productive.
Now, you and I talked a lot about over the years where you left me. Take a moment. But and my favorite SNL, one of my favorite SNL skits, like, oh, I'm overklempt. Torcox yourselves. The Holy Roman Empire, neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Discuss.
That was a very good representation. I think Mike Myers might come after us.
But we talked about this quite a bit because I think we have similar viewpoints on it. I never thought to go start a new university system. But we had conversations like, for me, I also agree that the university largely doesn't teach you how to be an employee. Yeah. And so I have 2 girls in college and I'm often frustrated by the things that they do and the rules that they have to have. Like, you have to, in order to graduate, you have to do this. I'm like, well, that has nothing to do with anything. Right. And so why force them? Well, it's so they can get more revenue and keep another teacher on staff and various other things like that. So so for me, as I was, talking to my girls as they were growing up, saying, hey, getting that piece of paper, and I think this is what's changed, which is maybe why the door has opened more for you now, is that historically, that piece of paper opened up doors that nothing else could, other than graduating, getting a diploma. That piece of paper was so important. So my recommendation to my girls was like, hey, go to college, get that piece of paper, try to learn something, learn how to be an adult, have fun, and that, and make friends, right? So learn,
and get blackout drunk.
Yes, well, but all those things like that. There's such an amazing experience that college can offer you. But to your point, or the point that you haven't made yet, but I think you're going to, is the fact that now companies are starting to say, like, they're realizing that certificate, that diploma, doesn't have as much value as it once was perceived.
Exactly. And it was about percent. And that's the exact thing. As I say, the one thing universities give you is the stamp that says you can interview this person for a job, right? But it's not for any good reason. It's not because, hey, because we really skilled them up and you're going to love them as an employee. It's like, no, we kind of sift through the coal and we find the best pieces of coal.
Right.
For you, the employer, to then turn into a diamond.
Right.
I think that's bull. Right. And that's what Pegasus is really designed to address, or one of the key things, which is we're not going to give employers the best coal. We are going to give them diamonds. Right. That is our job. That is the job of post-secondary education. It's to turn those worthless lumps of coal called kids into employable diamonds. And it's interesting because, the thing is, when you talk about it, it's a fun experience, which, I mean, it is a fun experience. But one, there are many other fun experiences throughout life. And 2, that's not really what that is for. That's what it's become. But it's not what it's for. You don't spend 4 years delaying adulthood, spend $200,000 to have fun. I can think of a lot cheaper ways to have fun. Some of them legal, some of them not. But still, there are much better ways to have fun than go to college for 4 years. But here's the thing. Ultimately, over the course of time, the next 5, 7, 10 years, as we successfully do what we're trying to do, which is, create these career accelerators that turn, these high school graduates into rock star professionals, what will start to happen is employers will start to notice, right? The early ones, and then word will spread to other ones. And eventually employers will be like, okay, because the only thing they want the employee who will provide the most lift, the fastest, with the least amount of resources that they have to put into them, right? And so that's what we'll be graduating and sending into the workforce. And so the employers at some point, the word will spread and they'll be like, okay, these career accelerator graduates are 10x better, 50x better than any of these university graduates. They know exactly what they're doing on day one, how to do it, how to use the tools to do it. And so what will start to happen, again, not day one, but over the course of the next decade, they will then start to hire first with the best jobs from career accelerators, from Pegasus, because that's where they get the best employees. And at some point, it will hit a tipping point, right? Where parents will realize, and they'll say, wait a second. I was willing to let you mess around for 4 years and I'd spend $200,000 when that was the best path to the best career. But now, here in the year 2037, I'm not going to pay $200,000 for you to get the leftover jobs. That's not what this is for. Again, it was fine when you got the best jobs here, but now the accelerator graduates are getting the best jobs. So guess who's going to an accelerator now? So no matter how fun teenagers in the year 2037 might be with their cool sunglasses and their silver clothes and all the other things, the flying cars, right? No matter how much they may want to go party at university, by that point, parents won't allow it because they're not going to subsidize that lifestyle for leftover employment.
Right.
And
I think one of the things, another thing that's really interesting is we've alluded to this, I think, on the podcast, but I don't know if we've ever actually said it. Like when you look at what my major was in college, I was a music major.
Right.
Like when you think in the grand scheme of the world of business, I've had a fairly successful career in business.
But go on.
But what did my music degree actually do? Now, there were lots of classes that I took because I was interested in them.
Yes.
And so I learned a lot of things because I was there, I had the opportunity to. But today, you've got YouTube and many other
Udemy
resources.
And Coursera and podcasts.
Right. There's so many things that you can learn from.
That Jeff Bezos invented books.
That's right.
You have those.
This is really smart of him.
Yeah, what? Really good. Who just putting that information in all one place.
That's amazing. But yeah, so to be able to, if you are interested in learning, you're always going to learn.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
But you don't need to pay $200,000 to teach somebody who already has a passion to learn.
No,
to learn.
Because
right?
you will find that. I mean, as we know, and it's funny, I'm about to bring this up on that topic because this leads to another really important thing about universities and how they suck. I have an extreme passion, as people know, actually, for the Gilded Age. Right? I didn't learn one thing about the Gilded Age in college. And I don't blame them for that. But my point is, your point, which is, but I was able to, I'll bet I know more about the Gilded Age than 99% of Americans. And I didn't learn it in college. I learned it from podcasts and books. Again, thank you, Jeff Bezos. As well as Udemy and Coursera and PBS and all of that. Right? And I learned it for mostly for free. Right? And I learned more than I ever would have learned at college because I was passionate about it, like you said. And, that's the thing with college. What college says about that is they say, no, you know what we're here for? We're here when you challenge them and go, you're not getting these kids ready for the next step, right? In life, for their jobs. They're like, no. That's not what we're here for. We're here to create well-rounded citizens of the world. Well, here's the thing, citizens of the world. That's a lie. Now, they're not lying to us. They're lying to themselves. They were confronted with this truth some couple decades ago. Why are you teaching these worthless courses that have nothing to do with what's next? And the truth is they didn't know. They have no idea why they're teaching those courses. And so they were like, well, it's funny you ask because well-rounded. We're making them well-rounded. That's what it's for. We're creating Renaissance men. That's why we do what we do. It's not about jobs. It's about creating well-rounded citizens of the world. I knew there was a reason we were doing it, and that was it. But it's not true. Because here's the thing with universities. When universities first came about in the 16 and 1700s in the United States, the only people who went to universities were the children of the upper class. What the upper class did, what they aspired to be back in the 16 and 1700s, was not businessmen, was not engineers. It was to be civic leaders. If you were a well-to-do person, if you were in the upper class in the 16 and 1700s in America, what you aspire, yeah, sure, you were a lawyer or you were a shipping magnate or something, but that was just to pay the bills. That's not how you defined yourself. That's not what you aspired to be. You aspired to be a congressman, a president, a judge, a district selectman, right? And think about it then. In that era where the upper class, that was what they aspired to be, was civic leaders. Then teaching courses to the next generation of the upper class, teaching courses in political science, Greek philosophy, macro and microeconomics, all of those things are job skills. Those are the things you need to know. You need to have that broad perspective on life, not to be a well-rounded person, but because it was critical to being a leader of your society. That's why they taught it, because those were the skills that the students of the upper class who were going to their college needed to succeed in the next step after college. But then what happened? And this is where, funny enough, the Gilded Age comes in, is in this, all of this was sort of mid 1800s. We're talking about what the upper class aspired to be, et cetera, et cetera. Well, starting in the mid to late 1800s, during the Gilded Age, the Second Industrial Revolution, there was a shift because of all of the business and innovations and everything that was happening. And now, all of a sudden, the upper class of the late 1800s, they aspired to be businessmen and engineers and the like. And colleges never changed. They just kept on doing what they were doing until, flash forward 100 years, and somebody asked them, why are you teaching this worthless stuff? And again, they panicked and came up with, we're creating well-rounded individuals. But the real answer is, it's because we're an outdated trade school, right? We were a white-collar trade school for the upper class of the 16 and 1700s. And that's what we're teaching them, how to be a civic leader in the 1700s. And we just never updated our curriculum. That's the real answer. That's why they teach the things they teach, because they're an outdated white-collar trade school. And honestly, another name I have for career accelerators is white-collar trade school, because that's what we are, right? We're a trade school. You learn by doing, and you learn it for a specific job, but it's white-collar jobs rather than the traditional trade schools of blue-collar jobs like HVAC, repair, and plumbing, which are great too, but we're just focused on the white-collar stuff, and so that's why we are going to destroy universities.
And now, obviously, the traditional university has a role to play, but I think what happened is universities became for-profit centers, and so therefore they felt like they had to attract every type of individual, and then they got into sports, and the sports became the driver of lots of additional revenue sources, and so they just wanted to create these enterprises that were just massive. And that's to generate money, to become for-profit. And so, but obviously having a university that's focusing on the medical field, right? Creating doctors, nurses, is a lot of education. But even that, before you turn that over into, you become a doctor, you need to go to actual
Residency and
residency,
internship.
which is all
and
hands-on.
All hands on. And so it's funny you say that because I think there is a role for universities, but I don't think it's what you said. Because I think your thought and your answer was not very well thought out. I don't think you put a lot of time into it. And I'm not sure just if you're making all the connections, right? No offense. No offense.
Plenty taken.
No offense. But so I tell some of my doctor friends, because I'm friends with some doctors people. Yeah, that's where I play. And so just over the course of the years, I would tell them about this idea for, I didn't have a name for Pegasus, but the idea for the career accelerators. And they would say, oh, yeah, no, that could be great for some, career paths, like software development or what have you. But probably definitely not things like, a lawyer or being a doctor or something. And I'd say to them, I go, well, let me ask you this. For medical school, what percentage of what you learned in medical school have you used throughout your career? And I said, and by the way, you cannot count what you learned in residency or in your internship because that's what I'm creating, right? That's what I'm building, that learning by the hands-on experience. In your 3 years of the looking at books, reading books, and if you want to add the 4 previous ones from college, in all those 7 years, what percentage of that knowledge do you use in your career? Have you used throughout your entire career? And that's when every single one of them chuckles because they know I have them. And they're like, I don't know, less than 5%. Because it is. And I say, and by the way, that's less than 5%. You would have learned that anyway if you just gone straight to your residency or your internship. Because the valuable part of those educations is the hands-on stuff. It's just not the book stuff.
I think it's
a skill, and you cannot master skills with books.
Right. And I think that's one of the things we've been talking about. We have several new employees that just joined us recently. And one of the things that
we had to hire 6 people to replace what I do.
That's right. And the one of the things that's interesting when you come into a new business is that you could have a super competent person come in, like they're the best engineer, like they've been doing this for a really long time. But the problem is when they're going into that particular new area, they're learning a whole new vocabulary, right? So it's just, you just learn by having the conversations, being present, and
by doing it.
By
and
doing
you make the mistakes, and it's like, oh, no, that's not how our platform works, actually. Because that to that to that.
It's like in the finance world, and this was something my daughter's boyfriend is going through his first job, and they're going through
Mortimer.
Yes, Mortimer. His name is Henry.
Oh, right.
And Henry Brewster. But shout out to Henry.
Did you want to give him? You want to really dox him and give him his address and phone number?
He's going to sponsor us later on. So thanks, buddy. But anyway, so I think one of the things that there's only certain companies that are really open to taking on new graduates because they have to have a training program to get them over the hump. And so he's going through that training program now. And one of the things that's really interesting is, again, he's going into the finance world. And so there's all these acronyms and expressions and things like that to the outside person is very, very foreign.
Yeah.
But once you understand that acronym, you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. It's really actually kind of simple.
Right.
But if somebody keeps using that acronym over and over and over again, it means nothing to you. And you just keep getting lost further and further and further. But you're not going to get taught those acronyms in college. And it's not until you actually get on the job.
Yeah.
And so I think there's, again, going back to like the finance world, there's only a handful of firms that are set up to be able to do that onboarding. The JP Morgans, the Goldmans, the Creative Plannings, various other companies like that. So many of them like we don't do.
So many employers now don't hire entry levels.
No interns, no entry level. We just don't have the ability to handhold them.
Right. Which is crazy because it's like, what the have you been doing for the last 4 years and paying $200,000 for?
Right.
To literally what? To go and not know what you're doing. That in any other context, that would be considered fraud.
Right.
Right. I'm going to take 4 years of your life, $200,000 to $200,000, but at the end, you'll be 4 years older and $200,000 poorer. That's it. That's what you'll have.
Another funny analogy in this, and I think it's kind of really interesting, speaks a lot to the world of the universities today and what it takes to actually graduate. It was kind of funny. one of my kids' friends was getting ready to graduate, and they got a notice from the dean or something that says you are 2 credits short of being able to graduate in May. And so they're like, oh no, what do I, like, how did this happen? I've been meeting with an advisor all along the way, and I've got it. And they're like, the good news is you can take anything. It really doesn't matter at all what you take. And so like, okay, but I'm already in the middle of my semester. It's all right. We have an accelerated class that it's only an 8-week, so it's half a semester, but it's a lot of time commitment. This class that they settled on, just so they could check the box and say, oh, I get my diploma.
Right.
Bowling. Bowling was the class that was chosen on just so they could get the piece of paper. And I'm thinking, each credit hour was like $500, and it was a 3 credit hour class. So there's $1,500 to be able to add this class to your, so you can get the diploma.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'll say that is realistic in that, I mean, you have to have a certain amount of credits to get promoted at work. And if you're 2 credits short, you're not getting promoted.
That's right.
Right? So I like how they simulate kind of the real world experience there in university. Can you sense my sarcasm, people? I mean, it's
so
absurd.
It really is.
It's all performative. It's absolutely absurd. And again, in any other context, that whole setup would be considered fraud. In fact, that's the thing is, a lot of the for-profit universities have gotten like shut down or brought up on charges of fraud and all of that because of the student loans that their students took on and all of that, and yet they couldn't get jobs. But the thing is, most of those places taught the exact same curriculum as a lot of the top not-for-profit universities, University of Michigan or Tulane or Yale or whatever it might be. It's the same sort of stuff. But the thing they don't have the patina, right? They don't have that rich heritage that makes their diploma prestigious enough to get their students an interview. So in other words, they are a perfect test of is university a fraud or not. Because you say, okay, let's just take off the patina, the prestige that goes with being a university. And let's just judge it based on its curriculum. Let's see what happens. Well, what happens is the students incur the same amount of debt. They apply for all the same jobs, and they don't get any of them because without the prestige, all you have is what the students actually studied and learned at college, which is nothing of use to anybody at all. And that's, it's a perfect example of how this thing is just broken, and it's broken beyond repair. They try to do things to fix it, but they can't. Because if they did the things they actually needed to fix them, they would go out of business, right? Because imagine, let's just say that the model we're doing at Pegasus, 1 year, $15K, focused on a single career, that's the model. Let's just say that's the right model, because it is. Colleges could not emulate that. They'd go out of business.
Right.
If they say, okay, we're not going to do 4-year program anymore, charge you $150K. We're now just going to do the 1-year program and $15K that gives you the success you need. They would literally go out of business. And so they can't fix it. And whenever they try, they're just slapping more stuff on top of their garbage. Like, ooh, look, here's a nice little filet. And it's like, yeah, but it's on top of a garbage heap. I don't want to eat my filet on top of a garbage heap. And, because they're like, oh no, we now have it where, you have a, what's it called? Like a co-op where you can work, like in between your semesters, you can work at firms and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, that's all the good stuff. You're still making them do the 4 years of garbage. Like, get rid of all that. But they can't. They can't because they're too bloated and they would collapse under their own weight if they tried to do that.
2 things. One, I wish you would have had this much passion when you worked for us. So, so it's pretty impressive, the passion that you're bringing to the table.
I will say, in fairness to me, because I think it's always important to be fair to me, this was literally an idea for Career Accelerators that I pretty much fully fleshed out 13 or 14 years ago.
Yeah.
But The time just wasn't right. I mean, people thought, that college was too expensive even back then, but no one was questioning the value of college, right? And so the pain point just wasn't there.
Right.
So I've been sitting on this idea. Yeah, so I was like, all right, I'll just put it on the shelf because it will fail if I launch it. And I just been sitting on this idea moly because I could see colleges were broken 20 years ago, right? And I've just been sitting on this. And then finally, 3 or 4 years ago, the dam broke. All of a sudden, enormous swaths of society, parents, students, employers, finally saw the emperor had no clothes. And that drumbeat's only gotten louder over the last 3 or 4 years. And that's when I said, okay, now's the time. So this has been something that's been bottled up for like a decade and a half.
Probably even COVID, I would imagine, helped with a lot of that because
it did. Thank God for COVID.
Some very few people, but there are some. There are some that I think Zoom. Yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of people. I think there's a handful that I think really benefited. But like I know one of the gripes that I have with my oldest daughter's college is that almost all of her classes are online. So she's going to a private D1 college,
right? And she's there physically. And so obviously it's not inexpensive if it's a private school, but so many of the classes are online. And it's just like, it just kind of eats at me a little. It's like, put it on YouTube. Learn it on YouTube. Right, exactly. And charge me $9.99 a month.
That's right.
I mean, it's crazy because you could get that off of Coursera, right? Or Udemy. You could get that stuff. $9.99 a month. And not to besmirch your daughter's university, because I wouldn't do that. Specifically. They all stink, including your daughter's university, but I'm not going to single them out. I forgot what I was going to say. I got so passionate about trying not to hurt Sienna's feelings with her garbage university. Oh, now I remember.
Okay, right, back.
Right, which is that not only can you learn the exact same things from Coursera and Udemy, for online for $9.99 a month or whatever their pricing is, but you learn it from like the first or second best professor in the country at American Revolutionary history or Renaissance art or whatever it is, versus the 32nd best in the country who happens to be at the university that you go to for that subject, right? So not only can you get it for, 1,000th of the cost, but you're learning from somebody who is better than the person you're paying $150,000 to learn it from.
Right.
And, it just, nothing about it, college makes sense anymore. Oh, well, no, I'll let you say the second thing and then I'll talk about something you had said before about college still has a purpose. And I'm like, I think it does have a purpose, but it might be different than what you said. But go on with your second thing.
The second thing was that this is the other beef that I had, was that
we're airing everything here today, people.
It's all coming out. You made a LinkedIn post that said the second most worthless degree was performance.
No, it was the worst. Performing arts. That was the worst. Not second.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just got even more deflated. But look at me now.
Right. The musician. Oh, wait, I'm in finance.
That's right. I'm in finance.
Yeah.
But,
and that's also what makes college bull is because people go, I know there's so many people who but with a major and then they do a career that has nothing to do with their major. Like that's ridiculous. And that is. But that's not even the most ridiculous part. The most ridiculous part of college is those people who do work in the career path that was their major and still don't know anything when they start their job. That's worse. By the way, forget that you didn't go into music for a career. But if you were going to go into music, right, and you went to Florida State for that, like you said, imagine if the way that you learned music, how to play the trombone. No.
Tuba.
The tuba. I was going to say, I knew it wasn't trumpet. And so I was like trombone, but I didn't feel like that was it. It was the tuba. So imagine if the way that the university, I know you knew the tuba before high school, but imagine if in high school and university, if they taught you how to play the tuba through lectures and reading textbooks about it. You don't get to play the tuba. You learn it by reading and listening to lectures. It sounds insane, right? Literally insane. But that's how they teach every other skill at college. Lectures and textbooks. That is not how you master any skill anywhere, ever. College is really, like you said, it's become this amalgam of things. And I think it's 4 things, which is, career. Not that it does anything for the career, but that's where the diploma gets you your career, or at least your start. So career readiness, research, sports, and I was hoping as I went through those 3, I would remember what the 4th one is, but I don't. Oh, no, yes, I remember now, which is the well-roundedness, right? Learning about art history and Baroque music and all that sort of stuff. It's the only era of music whose name I know.
Wow.
I guess rock and roll. Yeah, I guess I know that too, right? Rock and roll and Baroque. Those are the 2 musical eras I know. What I think will happen over the next several decades is you will see the unbundling of universities, where the career readiness, that's going to career accelerators. We take that whole thing over because we're going to do it 100x better than universities do. Sports, like I said, it doesn't make any sense. Well, I know originally why sports got tied to college is actually kind of interesting, but putting that aside, it makes no sense in this modern day and age. And so I've been predicting that will come unbundled. People have told me I'm insane. Like, it will never come unbundled. No, they'll never let it go. I mean, it's literally happening now.
We've had that conversation in the office a lot, where I think the evolution of NIL and transfer portals and everything has already killed the university sport ecosystem.
As it was, right. And it is
as it was. I'm not saying it's necessarily better or worse.
It's worse.
Now.
I'll say it's worse. I'll say it's worse.
But it's almost like it's a training ground before you go pro.
That's right.
Like basketball, college basketball. So many schools, you have the opportunity to be one and done.
Right.
And so you go to Kentucky because 1 year.
That's right.
And then I'm done.
Exactly. And that's
check that box.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. It is and now that these things are happening, like you said, the NIL and transfer portal and all that, at some point very soon, I predict within the next 5 to 7 years, people will go, okay, wait, what are we doing? Why is this still tied to, this makes no sense. Why now? I never did, but now we're realizing this makes no sense to have these sports teams. And we have these athletes attend classes that are even more worthless than the worthless classes we teach everyone else. And, they go through this performance of being student athletes when they're just athletes. Swimming and fencing and all that, they're student athletes. But, the basketball and football, maybe even baseball to a certain extent.
And beach volleyball and soccer.
And beach volleyball. Soccer, which is what Brian's daughters play in college. And so they're going to go, okay, this doesn't make sense. And they will spin off from the universities. They'll become the minor league basketball, minor league football. And people are like, well, but the colleges, they never give up. Like Notre Dame will never give up its football team. Ohio State will never give up its football team. Well, they will, because it won't make sense. And it hasn't made sense for a long time, but it will even make even less sense over the years as these new commercial developments continue to happen. But what they will find is a better model, I believe, which is, all those football teams that, the top 30 football teams will become a minor league football, and they'll break away from the universities, but they will be able to, and probably will, license their name from the university, because there's value in being called the Ohio State Buckeyes or the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And so they will, pay the universities. I'll pay you $50 million a year, which they'll be able to afford because they're making a ton of money as a minor league football team. We'll pay you $50 million a year to let us still call ourselves the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And for Notre Dame, that will be an amazing deal, because now they get $50 million in licensing royalties that drop right to the bottom line, 0 expenses. So that's $50 million of profit. And they don't have to deal with any of the headache that comes with having sports departments, managing the personnel, housing and feeding those people, pretending they go to classes, having to deal with all the controversy that comes up from various things. All they'll have to do is take their check every year and deposit it in the bank.
Yeah.
So I think that'll spin off. Then the well-roundedness, I think the Udemys, the Coursera's, podcasts, they're going to take that over. For anywhere from free to $10 a month, you can learn all the esoteric that you want, and from the best people in the country who are teaching it, right? And you can do it from the comfort of your room or office or what have you. So what I think universities will be in the future is research, right? That's the one thing they're good at. It's the one thing they're truly made for nowadays is research. And so I think they will continue to be the research centers of the country. But those other three components, the sports, the well-roundedness, and the career readiness, there are better paths for those now. And they're just become unbundled over the next couple of decades.
There you go. You heard it here first.
You did. You did. When the people of the future of the 2040s look back on this, they'll go, my God, not only was that man incredibly good looking, but he knew what he was talking about. He predicted the future 15 years. Well, I mean, I actually made this prediction like 15 years ago. So 30 years ago, he knew. He knew where this world was headed. You would think he would be distracted by his own good looks. He'd walk by mirrors and whatever he was thinking would go away as he went, my God, look at myself. But no.
Think of how many times that just in this podcast, you lost your train of thought. Was it because you were looking at me?
You know, it's funny. That is something from when I was a kid.
I have no idea.
Not a joke. Yeah.
We do need to wrap up.
When I was, whenever I would sit, usually at like a restaurant, I would sit in front of a mirror, right? Because like sometimes we're in a booth and there's a mirrored wall or whatever, and I'm on this side. I couldn't help but look at myself like while I was talking. I was something like hypnotic about it. And I would just look at myself as I was talking. And at some point, invariably throughout the conversation, you know, I was usually with my family because I was a kid. And my dad would be like, hey, stop looking at yourself. I'm like, oh yeah. And I don't know. It was so, but it wasn't a vanity thing.
So if you and I are on Zoom calls, I should assume that you're looking at yourself, your own
100%.
image.
I move the camera image of myself up to right by the camera. So it looks like I'm looking at you, but I'm actually looking at my own picture.
Brilliant.
But it's funny because I'm not like admiring myself. There's just something, I don't know, just about watching yourself talk. It's strangely hypnotic. And so there you have it. So everybody, I know this session,
We went everything from education to education.
Education.
Not only do we have this winding path, but we stayed.
Hey, this is a pretty straight as
and
iron.
narrow. Yeah.
That's right. So please, everybody, join us next month. Which is, by the way, that's the first time I got it right. Because every time I say next week.
Yeah.
Every time. But please join us next month where we talk about everything from the photoelectric effect to general relativity.